Hey y'all, it's me, CheesyPaninie. While we're all here sitting in our homes doing whatever we can to pass the time and keep ourselves safe and healthy, I thought about things we could look forward to, and one of those things was Terraria's 1.4 update. Now I know it's been a couple of years since they first announced it, but you know, the longer it takes, the more excited I am because I know that the time spent working on it is gonna be worth it. Now we've gotten a lot of spoilers from them as we waited, but I have a couple of ideas and features I wish we would see in this update. I don't know if any of them are possible or if they're difficult to implement from a developer's standpoint, so I don't expect that any of these would really make it in the game. But I just wanted to make a list anyway, and maybe this video would reach them and they might actually think some of the ideas are useful. So without further ado, here's my Terraria 1.4 wishlist. So the first item on my list is to make all the walls and blocks in the game obtainable, so we won't need mods to access them anymore. I can't tell you how many times I found the wall I needed for a build in one of the unobtainable walls. There's just so many things you can do with them, especially when it comes to nature builds. And I really would love to be able to use blocks like the stone blocks with gemstones in them without having to copy paste it every time. That said, I would really love it if it was also possible to place decorative sprites like tents, bones, and plants like vines and all of that through the creative mode. I mean, this way, people can take advantage of using those decors without having to add more item drops in the game. Speaking of decorating, I never really understood why candles and certain types of furniture were only placeable on other furniture and platforms. There were so many instances where I wished that I could place a candle on a block, but I couldn't. I know it seems like such a small thing, but you have no idea how many things we could do with this. So if it's possible to code it in a way that allows this, I would be super grateful. That said, it would be so good for building if furniture stacking was also possible. I know that there are people who do these tricks where they would use teleporters to make it happen, but it would be really helpful for building if it can be done naturally. Speaking of furniture, adding some more varieties to lighting would be really cool, like making fluorescent lights or lights that can be placed on walls. I mean, think of the possibilities. Can you imagine lights that are placed like the ivy from Chad's furniture mod, or wall lamps like these? Speaking of Chad's ivy, I also like the idea of having more blocks that are placed in the same layer as furniture, like wooden beams and Chad's furniture mod's ivy. For blocks like wooden beams, I think it would be nice to have lighter colored blocks like that, because while you can actuate blocks to have the same effect as a wooden beam, the blocks tend to get way darker. As for blocks like the ivy, I like the idea that you can make walls look different by placing them. I mean, imagine having blood or dirt blocks that would add a bloodied or dirty effect on the walls. And since we're on the subject of new blocks, I would like to propose cheese blocks and walls with holes in them. And yeah, this one is more of a personal request since I really like cheese. But before you dismiss this, think about it. Having blocks and walls with holes in them would make it an interesting block to build with, especially when you paint it. I like the idea of blocks that have gaps and holes and such where you can see the walls or background behind it. If not this, then maybe some new transparent or translucent blocks like glass. I think blocks with special properties would be pretty fun too. That's why I'm also suggesting music blocks. Imagine having a couple of blocks that would play a note when it's activated or when it was stepped on. I can imagine that it would be something a lot of people would fiddle and experiment with. I mean, just look at Warframe. They had this Warframe where her special powers had to do with the player making a music loop with her weapon, so every time she plays a song, it would buff the other players around her. After they released that new Warframe, a lot of people started uploading loops of different music online and on YouTube. Someone even formed a band with it. It actually helped promote the game as well. Oh, and you know how glowing mushrooms glow blue in the dark? I think it would be really awesome if the glow changed depending on the paint color you use it on. I know other blocks and furniture doesn't really change the glow color either, and I don't really mind those, especially Gemspark. I prefer that those don't change at all, but with glowing mushroom, I feel like there's so much potential with doing that because the whole biome would change color too. Speaking of changing color, there's this online game I used to play called WILDSTAR, and it also had a building feature where you can build your base or house and be really creative with it. They have this one setting where you can change the lighting effects or the overall sky and atmosphere of the place, and I would really love to see something like that in Terraria. If we have a device or mechanism that triggers something like that in the game, it would definitely change the way people build. It can compensate for the amount of colors that are not usually available in the normal light, like pastels or desaturated colors. I mean, imagine it. Someone could make an adventure map, and when they teleport to a certain place, the whole screen turns black and white, or maybe even sepia, giving off the feeling of the players experiencing a flashback. Or like if a player discovers a new world somewhere and everything's just pastel and colorful. Aside from this, since we already have something for wires like the grand design, I think it would be really useful to have something equivalent to that for painting. A tool where you can just put in the paint, and maybe it can even paint multiple blocks and walls at a time. This would really speed things up and make it easier for people to switch between colors. Since we're thinking about painting already, I never really played Splatoon, but I've always liked the concept of the game where you can paint the area and the one with the most paint color wins or something like that. Wouldn't it be cool if there was a game mode that lets you do that in Terraria? I just thought of putting it out there along with potion throwing. I used to play a lot of Ragnarok online, and one of the things I like about the alchemy class is the potion throwing skill. I mean, we already throw a lot of things in the game, why not potions? Maybe even something like a heart gun or some kind of healing weapon. Anyways, going back to tools that can be useful to have, I'd also like to propose the switch rod. This tool would act like an actuation rod, except it's used for instantly activating or deactivating mechanisms or light. Aside from this, I'd really love to have a tool that allows you to merge or unmerge blocks or walls. Some blocks and walls feel like they can really look good when merged together, while some look way better when they aren't. Though these all depend on what you're going for in a build you're making. I would really love some wireless teleporters that you place between long distances. It's also kind of hard to install teleporters when there are a lot of things going on in the map, and wireless teleporters would definitely fix that problem. I like the idea of putting in a number code that corresponds to the teleporter you want to go to. But aside from this, I'd love to have teleporters that can teleport between two maps. The reason for this is because I like making builds with interiors and exteriors, and placing them in the same map may break some immersion and force you to use up more space than you need to. Plus, imagine how cool it would be to play an adventure map where the concept is like Silent Hill and it's mirrors where you could go to the exact same world but a demented version of it. I don't know how this would be coded or if this would even be possible, but I like the idea of having some kind of mechanism which will let you move an area of blocks around, like up and down or left or right, or maybe even diagonally. If there was a mechanic like this, we could totally make elevators, custom vehicles, or even moving block obstacles. Now, this is something I've always wanted to have because I like making builds with some kind of story in it. What I do instead is put in a mannequin and place a signpost and pretend that is their dialogue. If making custom NPCs are possible to do for the next update, I would be super happy. But if not, then can we have new signpost designs instead? I'd love some that look like speech bubbles. Last but not least, I wish that mods made for PC would be possible to use in other platforms. And I know that one is a long shot and probably complicated to make, but I just wanted to put that out there because it would be a great addition and would make the game even more interesting for people in other platforms. So anyways, that's my wish list for Terraria 1.4. I hope you found this list interesting and maybe got some fun ideas from it. If you like this video, give it a big thumbs up and share it with your friends. Maybe it might even reach Real Logic. If you have some ideas and suggestions of your own, write it down on the comments below. If you guys like my videos, please consider subscribing and hitting that bell notification. Anyways, that's it for now. I'm just gonna go do my thing and you guys do your thing, and I'll see you guys later. Take it easy, stay cheesy.